It was springtime on the island of Sodor. All the engines were working hard in the sunshine. One morning, Mr. Percival arrived at the sheds. He had some exciting news. The new Sodor Museum opens soon, he announced. Lots of very important people will be coming to the island for the grand opening. What's a museum? Asked Peter Sam. It's a place where they put old things so people can stand and look at it, helped Sir Handel. I want you all to look your best so everyone is to have a repaint. All the engines were very pleased. Later that morning, Duke met Duncan at Crovan's Gate Station. Have you heard about the opening of the new museum? Puffed Duncan. We are all having a repaint. I shall look wonderful with a brand new coat of yellow paint. I've not heard about it, said Duke. Why haven't Mr. Percival told me? You must have been left out, chuffed Duncan, and he steamed away. That night, Duke couldn't sleep. He kept worrying about what Duncan had said. Why hasn't Mr. Percival told me about the museum? He wondered. Why have I been left out? By the next morning, Duke thought he knew the answer. He met Peter Sam at the top station. Have you heard about the museum? Asked Duke. Yes, puffed Peter Sam excitedly. We are being repainted. I'm not, puffed Duke sadly, but I think I know why. I am a very old engine. Maybe Mr. Percival has decided to put me inside the museum. Peter Sam wasn't so sure. Why don't you ask him? Asked Peter Sam helpfully. Duke looked worried. He was frightened of what Mr. Percival might say. Must go, puffed Peter Sam. Real useful engines are really busy ones. And he chuffed away. Duke thought for a moment. I'll show Mr. Percival that he can't put me in the museum, said Duke. I'll show him I'm a really useful engine. Duke arrived at the sheds. Mr. Percival was talking to Scaroli. Scaroli, you must go to the yard for your repaint, said Mr. Percival. Scaroli was very happy. Another engine must collect your flour, added Mr. Percival. I'll do it, sir, said Duke quickly. Thank you, smiled Mr. Percival. And before he could say anything else, Duke steamed off. He didn't want Mr. Percival to tell him that he was going to be put in the museum. Duke waited impatiently at the flour mill. Hurry up! Hurry up! He wished. I must get to the station as soon as I can. When Duke delivered the flour, he saw Mr. Percival standing on the dockside. He was talking to the dockmaster. Mr. Percival saw Duke. He wanted to speak to him, but Duke steamed off as fast as he could. Later, Duke saw Sir Handel. He was pulling his coaches. I'm off on my repaint, chuffed Sir Handel happily. I can pull your coaches for you, said Duke. Thank you, Duke, tooted Sir Handel. So Duke pulled Sir Handel's coaches along the line. And while Duncan was getting in a shiny new coat of yellow paint, Duke collected coal cars from the mines for Duncan. And while Peter Sam was having his repaint, Duke shunted freight cars full of slate in the quarry for Peter Sam, even though it was dusty and dirty work. At last, Duke had finished. He was very tired and very dirty. Suddenly, he saw Mr. Percival waiting by the track. Duke still didn't want to speak to Mr. Percival. Quickly, he reversed into a siding, but he didn't see that a big slate had fallen on the line. "Bust my boiler!" he cried. Luckily, no one was hurt, but Duke's axle and his tender were broken. He couldn't move. Mr. Percival hurried over. "Why have you been running away from me all day?" he asked. "I don't want to be put in a museum," Duke said sadly. "Why would I do that, Duke?" asked Mr. Percival. "Because a museum is full of old things, and I'm an old engine, and I'm not really useful anymore." Mr. Percival smiled. "Duke, you may be old, but you are far too useful to be put in a museum. You have worked harder today than any other engine. And as Sodor's only an old engine, I have a very special job for you. First, you will have a special polish. Then you are to take all the visitors to the museum for the grand opening." Duke felt very happy. He let out a great whoosh of steam. "I've been trying to tell you that all day," added Mr. Percival. Duke smiled. He felt very silly. So Duke's axle and tenders were repaired, and then he was polished until he looked as good as new. On the day of the museum open, Duke picked up the visitors at the top station and puffed them proudly to the new museum. Duke was proud to be old, and he was even prouder to be the only real useful engine on the island of Sodor.